The state of India, Kerala. The state of India it's not a small place. It's much, much bigger than Macedonia. It's about as big as California in terms of population, 35 million people, roughly. This state of India is not one of the wealthier states of India. Indeed, it's average to below average in the gross domestic product. It has 1/10, or rather 1/3 of the gross domestic product of Cuba, roughly $1,000 per capita. And yet its health outcomes are comparable to the health outcomes elsewhere. So how couldn't very poor countries, or a country like Cuba, which has been under economic attack by the United States for decades, how can it produce such good health outcomes with so little income? And this is an important question, it seems to me, that if you're thinking about how does a society generate health and how does it produce a more equitable distribution of health in it, the fact that very poor countries can do very well in generating health is an important fact. And I think the answer in Kerala is particularly interesting. When I first went to Kerala, the belief I had was that Kerala had very good health outcomes because it had a legacy of a very left-wing government and communist administration. What I learned when I was in Kerala and talking to people is that Kerala it was the only place in India, the only state in India, where there was a legacy of maternal property transmission. That is, you couldn't denigrate women because they had the money. The money followed them. And this was a very important fact. Maybe the policies of a government were tacked on to this legacy that you couldn't denigrate women in this particular way. And in Kerala, what you see is that women couldn't be uneducated. You had to have high investment in the education of women, and the kinds of investments that were made in women, in their access to education and so on, were ones that had a big impact on health. Now, this is a social determinant of health. It's outside the health sector. So Kerala did very well improving the health of its own population across the board, despite very low income levels, because it had a view that was different from what was prominent elsewhere in India. And I think this is a very deep lesson about the importance of non-health factors in determining health in a population. And it's not something that would jump to mind, especially in a meeting of people interested in health. Most of whom, how many here have a background as physicians? Well, in most audiences, I would have expected the majority of people to raise their hand. In any case, my point is that more is determined by the function of other goods in society than simply medicine.